Thank you, everyone. I hope you can hear me fine, right? So imagine a company where 200 people can deliver on your strategic purposes as well as a team of 12 delivers sprints. So I will try to show you today, if this thing works. Yes. I will try to show you today what are the ingredients to achieve this. I've been working in the last 10 years in Citi and Wirecard and in Santander to accomplish this as a head of project management offices. So let's start with some reality checks. What's the state of agile and adoption around the world? In 2021, there was a State of the Agile survey, and in there, 86% of the companies have claimed that they have adopted Agile, at least on the team level. So Agile adoption, by now, after 4 more years, probably very established. However, the McKinsey study in 2023, so 3 years later, concluded that those companies that have actually tried to scale beyond team level Agile, only 30% have succeeded. So 70% of those who actually tried, they failed. This failure rate is a huge loss. It's a huge loss in money, and it's also a huge loss in potential. What might be the reason? Many people think that scaling Agile is just doing more of Agile, right? We do more Scrum teams, we do Scrum of Scrums, and so on and so on. All the studies in the last 10 years concluded to 3 factors that actually accelerate scaling. And it is not about doing more. It is always about doing something different and doing something better. If you have a PMO and you try Agile scaling, then you will achieve a 72% better delivery towards your strategic goals. If you have a center of excellence in the company, then your Agile scaling transition will be 3 times faster than in any other companies. And the most recent studies are saying that if you use AI along this process, then your performance will be 30% more. And we will come back to this AI 30% at the end of the presentation as well. And there is always the age-old question, right? So as a company, when we start scaling, then what is the right approach for us? Should we use the old waterfall models, which is marked here as predictive, or should we use the pure Agile models, or we do something different? PMI has actually measured across the world in the last 5 years what is the adoption rate of the different management models. And you can see predictive is on the decline. That's quite clear. But if you look at Agile, it's fluctuating. And I can tell you that 24 has a value between 27 and 25, so 25 point something. So it's really fluctuating. But what is emerging is the hybrid solutions. And this is what we also find, that the standards that promote Agile scaling are hybrid solutions. These are the 2 big standards worldwide that you can use for scaling. The first one is PMI. You might think that this is the old waterfall way of managing projects, but I have news for you, because January 1st this year, they joined with Agile Alliance. So whoever has a Scrum Master diploma from Agile Alliance, they're already part of PMI as well. and their latest standards are very, very accommodating to the agile principles. On the other hand, SAFe is a very well-established hybrid way of scaling, with more than 20,000 organizations already using it. It's a scalable framework, so it may not that all of the SAFe layers are used by all of the companies, but that's actually the beauty of these frameworks, that you can shape it to your needs. So let's see, what are the ingredients that you need to actually scale well? And I'm not going to quote any frameworks. I will tell you what I see and what the experience is. And the first thing we need to acknowledge is that the scaled execution system or delivery framework is layered. On the bottom, there is a teamwork layer. This is what everybody knows, because this is where most of the work actually happens. The next layer is the first value delivery layer. This is where your projects live, or this is where single features live. And this is the first layer where you, as a company, can actually earn money. The next layer is when you need to partner with somebody to create a synergic value. Think about big programs, think about value streams where multiple companies work together or multiple departments work together. And the final layer is the strategic layer. This is where you manage your budget, this is where you manage your portfolio, this is where you put your OKRs in front of the company. This is where you decide on the big things. But to manage work effectively, we have to see the work. We have to know what's happening within all these layers. And it's really important that you have tangible, trackable work items. Each of the layer has a number of work items which are connected to it, and each of those work items have their own rhythm and their own characteristics. And what needs to bind all this together is governance. How the communication is flowing from each layer, from one layer to the other. And there's always a debate, what is actually governance? So I go back to the very, very simple definition of governance, which is governance is a framework within which decisions are made. This is so simple. And it has 4 key elements. The decisions themselves, each of those layers that you have seen, from time to time you need to make decisions. You need to make budget decisions, but you also need to make priority decisions on features, and so on and so on. The next component is artifacts. What supports your decisions? What was your past performance? What did you do already? What did you actually discuss or didn't discuss? These need to be something tangible, artifacts that support your decision. The third important component is cadence. It is the rhythm that each layer actually works. If you work on the team layer, that cadence is probably your sprint cadence, which is 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks. And the next layer needs to align to that. Maybe they skip a beat, and their cadence is 4 weeks instead of 2 weeks. And the next layer needs to align to that, and so on, and so on. And what binds everything together is a plan of communication. How you interact, how you use these parts, that's the communication. You should have a plan about that as well. And the final, and I think often overlooked but very important ingredient is organizational agility. Who knows Conway's law? You guys are software architects, right? So when you go into a scaling transition, you're also designing a system. And Conway's law says that the organizational communication patterns will determine your design, which means it it will determine your scaled design as well. So you need to align your organization to the scaled framework that you want to use. Now, there are many variations and there are many possibilities that you can use. SAFe is suggesting a dual operating system, but there is also something called the inverse convey maneuver that you can use. So there are many tools at your disposal, but you must not forget about this ingredient either. And as a second part of the presentation, I would like to bust a couple of myths that usually come up, and they are the biggest pain points during transitions, or the biggest questions. And the first one is about meetings. So who thinks they have too much meetings? Okay. And who thinks that these meetings are because of the frameworks that they are using? So maybe not. You guys are right. So we measured the scaled frameworks, and the best example for this is SAFe. And for SAFe, only 30% of the work hours is mandated as meetings, and only for the really collaborative roles, such as product managers, scrum masters, release train engineers, and so on. So when you're saying you have too many meetings, it is probably not because of the frameworks. It is more a culture issue. So you need to handle it like that. My favorite way of handling too many meetings is not to attend them if I don't know what I'm supposed to do there. And this is what I suggest to you as well. Another myth that often comes up is that agile is inherently unpredictable. So how can we do any big roadmaps, any 3 months, 5 months roadmap planning if we are measuring everything in story points, right? The truth is that when we are measuring everything in story points, we're also measuring the team's velocity. So based on the velocity, we can draw roadmaps. And I can tell you that PMOs and managers and executives, they look at the velocity, they look at the workload that you guys have, and they will draw up a roadmap. This can lead to something that I call a commitment paradox, right? Because the bosses have decided a deadline, but the teams think they are still on story points, and the story points don't have a deadline. So transparency is key. The teams must be aware of their actual deadlines. And if we do it this way, then iterative planning actually refines accuracy. Another myth, many of these frameworks use KPIs from the top for strategic goal setting. But KPIs can be a double-edged sword. So we worked in a team when there was a commitment fulfillment KPI, right? A say-do metric. What we promised must be delivered. So there were teams who actually reached 95% or even 100% commitment metric. So whatever they said, they always delivered. But when we asked the clients for whom they actually provided the software, they said, why are you so proud of these teams? They haven't delivered anything useful for 3 months for us, right? Yes, because they only committed to stuff that they have already under the belt, and they didn't actually put effort to any new innovation. This is the watermelon green KPIs, right? It looks green on the dashboard, but if you cut it open, they are very, very red. So KPIs are indicators. And the primary metric of success is business success. Focus on outcomes and not outputs. And if you use KPIs, focus on the trend and not necessarily on the value. And also, if the strategy changes, you pivot. probably your KPIs need to pivot as well, because what you measure today might be yesterday's wrong priority. The next myth is that scaling is only for IT. I don't know if there are non-IT people here, but this very often comes up. The industry is looking for good use cases of non-IT adoption, and these three are the most famous ones. In Barclays, they have changed everything to scale agile methods: HR, auditing, security, compliance, retail banking, everything. Already in 2019. The other use case is John Deere. Actually, more than 10 years ago, they switched manufacturing to a scaled agile framework. Now they have self-driving tractors sold, even in Europe, which Tesla still doesn't have. And the final example is government. So government offices across the US have adopted SAFe, but I think the best example is the National Science Foundation, right? So if the scientists are trusting SAFe, then there must be something to it. Yes, and the final myth is about regulation. So if you're working in a company about finance or health or a highly regulated company, you might get the pushback that, okay, but if we're using agile, then what will the auditors say? Because we are audited all the time and so on. The thing is that if you use those ingredients, and if you can show the work items, and if you can show how the work flows, then auditors will be your best friend. And I can attest to that. Those examples are heavily regulated industries who already adopted a scaled agile. But what should be really convincing is the McKinsey findings from 2021. 65% of regulated firms report fewer compliance issues after agile transformation. And for SAFe, those companies who adopted SAFe in pharma and finance, they report improved audit readiness, 70%. And let's take a look at the impact of AI. I promised at the very beginning that we will come to this. PMI has made a study, they called it the Gen AI journey, and the study ran through last year. I know it's a very complex diagram, so I tried to make it simpler on the left-hand side. They made a measurement at the beginning of last year when the AI systems became widespread and everybody started adopting them. So everybody reported above 50%, almost 60% adoption. So they started to use the systems, which was really good. At the same time, they also reported 55% more to be more productive. So it's a huge productivity gain. At least this is what they reported. Then 6 months later, they repeated the same questions and they looked at the same cohort again. And now that everybody familiarized themselves with AI, what is the result? There's a huge drop. Only 21% of the employees actually used AI, and the productivity has also dropped. The reported productivity gains have also dropped from 55% to 23%. It looks a big drop, but guys, if you are 20% more productive, that is still very, very good. So the hype curve Maybe we have ridden the hype curve, but what remains, it's still super. And if we look at the adoption for the tasks which are related to governance and project management, the picture is actually different, because what you have seen is the market-wide adoption. And now this is the project-specific, project management-specific adoption. And you can see that the trend has actually changed. The squares are the initial gains, and the circles are the advanced gains. So as people used AI, they actually got better at it. So they had more gains. So we can say if you average everything here, there is probably a 40%, 42% performance gain in this area, because we are not using all of these tasks at the same level. I think we can safely say that there is at least a 30% of performance gain in AI in this field. And everybody's asking me, okay, but how will we use AI and what's going to be the future? So I know what I see the trend is that AI will become infrastructure. So it will become cheaper, it will become more accessible. The UIs that we are using will be more conversational, and any text generation feature will be more readily available for us. There is already something called the vibe coding. You guys probably have heard about it. When AI is actually writing more than half of your code. Will this become vibe working at some point? Maybe. Maybe that's where the industry is heading. We have a good chance for that. So as a takeaway that you can take home as a lesson learned about scaling today. If you want to scale your execution ecosystem, find your layers, use a PMO or a center of excellence, or both if you can do it. Look out for myths and partner with AI. And finally, dream big and scale smart. And me and my colleagues, we have just established a small company where you can find us. So if you go to this website, you will find my contacts. If you want to know more about scaling, we are happy to help you and guide you on this journey. We're also offering trainings, various kinds, and coachings as well. And before I finish, I want to give you the chance to participate in a pilot. We are creating a training course which is called Build Your Own PMO. So if you want to know how to build a proper PMO, check out this page on our website, or tell your colleagues who might be interested in this, and join the crew, and we will call you and we will test our training with you. Thank you very much.